Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive, where we dive deep.
Into some fascinating material.
That's right.
Yeah.
Today, we're taking a look at a collection of notes and excerpts, all centered around one very specific place and time.
Wind Gap, Missouri.
Right.
During a period of really intense local tension following a tragic event.
And our mission here isn't to just sort of rehash the surface details of what happened, but to go deeper.
Under the skin of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to look at how how the people in this community were impacted, and to explore the relationships, the web of relationships that you were observing during your time there.
Exactly. And what really struck us when we were going through your notes was the way that they captured these very personal glimpses of life in Wind Gap.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, official pronouncements or big public statements, but these small moments,
Yeah.
snippets of overheard conversations,
Right.
little observations of a gesture or a look
Right.
or a way that a family was interacting.
The kind of details that you often wouldn't get from, just reading a news report or something.
Exactly. And it's in those details that we feel like we can find the real pulse of Wind Gap at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal today is to try to unpack those undercurrents.
Right.
What do these seemingly small moments tell us about the bigger picture of what was happening in Wind Gap?
Yeah.
And maybe we can start with a figure who seemed to draw a lot of your attention.
Okay.
Amma.
Amma, yeah. She's a fascinating character right from the start. And one of the things that jumps out immediately is the apparent contradiction in how she's perceived.
Mhm.
You have notes where her mother describes her as, the most popular girl in school,
Right.
but then you also have a note where you label her as the meanest.
Yeah.
And that stark contrast right there immediately suggests that there's more to Amma than meets the eye.
Yeah, like she's presenting different versions of herself. Maybe.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, is she consciously playing these different roles depending on who she's around?
Yeah. And you also picked up on this kind of shift in her behavior. When she's with her mother, Adora, you describe her as compliant, sweet, needy, almost like she's, performing to get a certain reaction.
Yeah.
But then away from that domestic environment, you observe this violent streak, even a moment where she lashes out physically.
Right. And that really raises the question of, which is the true Amma?
Right.
Or if these are just different facets of a very complex personality.
Yeah. Is it a mask, or is it just, different sides of her coming out at different times?
Exactly. And the connection that you drew to the stories about Am and Natalie is particularly interesting. The idea that Amma might share some darker similarity with the deceased girls rather than being like the seemingly innocent Marion.
Right.
It definitely adds a layer of unease about her.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's a hidden impulsivity there, a potential for something darker that we don't immediately see.
Right. It's like she's testing the waters, pushing boundaries to see what she can get away with.
Yeah, maybe exploring a more volatile side of herself.
Exactly. And the fact that you noted that she might be acting out away from home
Right.
suggests a level of awareness there, like a deliberate choice about when and where to reveal these different aspects of herself.
Right, so it's not just, a pure outburst. It's almost calculated in a way.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about your encounter with Mrs. Keene,
Okay.
Natalie's mother. This whole scene just feels heavy with unspoken grief and tension.
It does. And your decision to pursue that quote even while you were dealing with your own difficulties and knowing that there could be professional repercussions really speaks to the intense pressure that you must have been under.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely driven to try to understand what had happened.
Right.
But, looking back, it maybe wasn't the most sensitive approach.
And the details of the encounter itself are incredibly revealing about the atmosphere in Wind Gap at that time. The image of those 3 stumpy candles long since blown out at the site where Natalie's body was found.
Right.
It's so stark and desolate.
Like a forgotten memorial almost.
Yeah, and then the awkwardness of running into Natalie's brother and his girlfriend outside their home.
Right.
This almost strained attempt at normalcy, or maybe even a form of denial, right? In that charged space.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to just go about their day.
Yeah.
But you could feel the weight of what had happened all around them.
And then your account of entering the Keene home.
Yeah.
You mentioned feeling like those words from Curry about needing an invitation.
Like a vampire.
Yeah, like vampire really stuck with you.
They did. And looking back, it definitely wasn't the most ethical approach.
It provides a really raw glimpse into the often difficult dynamic between the media and those directly affected by tragedy.
Yeah.
I mean, Mrs. Keene's initial lack of recognition, given how many people she must have encountered during that period,
Right.
it's perhaps understandable.
Yeah.
But her eventual reaction, the intense hostility that she directed at you, it reveals the profound pain and resentment that she clearly felt towards the intrusion of the media.
It's a very visceral reaction.
And amidst all of that raw emotion, you noted a specific detail, the red heart necklace she was wearing.
Yeah, it really stood out.
That beaded necklace made of wood with a big red heart at its center.
Right.
It becomes this really potent symbol.
Yeah. What do you think it represents?
Well, it could represent a lot of things, a fragile, broken heart, a mother's enduring love for her lost child, or even a feeling of being trapped in this cycle of grief.
It's like the heart is beating, but it's also broken.
Yeah, and her words calling you a parasite and disgusting.
Right.
They really underscore that adversarial relationship that can develop in these situations.
They do.
It's a stark reminder of the immense emotional toll these events take and how the media can be perceived as exacerbating that pain.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance to strike. And then as you were leaving that encounter, you were approached by Meredith John Keene's girlfriend.
Right.
And that interaction felt almost equally unsettling, but in a very different way.
Yeah, what stands out there is Meredith's immediate recognition of you and her rather casual remark about remembering you as a goofball.
Right.
It's a very specific, almost dismissive way of framing your past connection.
Yeah.
And then the offer to help you get a quote from John.
Right.
Followed immediately by her reapplying lip gloss after mentioning Natalie's death.
It was jarring.
It's a jarring juxtaposition.
Yeah, it felt like a profound disconnect. Like the tragedy was almost secondary to her own appearance.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the social dynamics within Wind Gap.
Right.
Where perhaps maintaining a certain facade or engaging in a degree of self-absorption is a way of navigating difficult situations.
Right. Like maybe it's a coping mechanism or a way to distance themselves from the pain of what's happening around them.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you think about the values and priorities within this community.
Yeah. Okay. And then shifting gears again to another way, you were trying to get a sense of the town's atmosphere, your anonymous visit to the hardware store.
Right.
This was a much more subtle approach to gathering information.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast to that direct confrontation with Mrs. Keene. Here, you're trying to take the pulse of the community more generally to understand the immediate practical reactions to the tragedy.
And what did you find?
Well, the hardware store employees' comments about the increased demand for locks and double bolts, particularly from families with children, clearly indicate this surge of fear, this heightened sense of vulnerability in Wind Gap.
Like the town felt unsafe.
Exactly. But the employee also mentioned people wanting to donate to Natalie's family.
Right.
Which suggests that alongside the fear, there was also a strong sense of community solidarity and empathy for those directly affected.
Right. So it's this complex mix of emotion.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Let's move on to your dinner meeting with Richard.
Okay.
This encounter seems to delve into some really complex territory.
It does. It offers a different kind of insight. A more personal exploration of the underlying tensions in Wind Gap.
Yeah, and even the setting at Gritty's, this family restaurant with its less than appealing salad bar, already sets a slightly off-kilter tone.
It does. And Richard's flirtatious interaction with the hostess when you were arriving immediately establishes a certain aspect of his personality.
This kind of detached, almost performative charm.
Yeah, exactly. But then the unexpected run-in with Kathy, your former classmate.
That was a surprise.
That really seems to open up a window into your shared history and your own past in Wind Gap.
Did those shared memories, the drunken escapades, the pool table story?
Right.
These anecdotes, while seemingly lighthearted, they hint at a history of maybe less than responsible behavior.
And a certain kind of small town closeness.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
Exactly. And then Bobby Kidder's deer hooves.
That was a strange detail.
That's such a bizarre and memorable detail.
Yeah, it is.
It really speaks to the unique, sometimes unsettling local color of Wind Gap.
Like a strange little relic of the town's character.
Yeah, but then Richard shifts the conversation to a much darker subject, the violence in Wind Gap.
Right.
His line of questioning, open versus hidden group versus personal, it shows his investigative mind at work trying to understand the specific nature of any potential underlying violence within this community.
Yeah, he was really trying to get to the root of it.
Exactly. He wants to move beyond the immediate tragedy.
Right.
And understand if there are deeper patterns or a history of violence within Wingate.
And your initial hesitation to share your own personal experiences, followed by the eventual recounting of those deeply disturbing childhood memories.
Right. The biting incident, the stick at recess, the group sexual encounter.
Yeah.
These are all instances of trauma that clearly still have a profound impact on you.
They do. It was incredibly difficult to revisit those memories, and I hadn't anticipated sharing such personal details.
And Richard's reactions are also telling. His initial lightheartedness gives way to a more serious and empathetic demeanor.
Right.
It's like he's beginning to understand the potential for hidden pain and perhaps even hidden violence within Wingate on a more personal level.
Yeah, and then the subsequent discussion about the definition of rape.
Right.
And my perspective on female agency in those kinds of situations. It adds another layer of complexity to this already intense conversation.
It does. It highlights the different ways of understanding those experiences.
Yeah. And for me, it was important to express my perspective on not wanting to be automatically labeled a victim simply because of intoxication.
Right.
This feeling of needing to maintain agency, even in vulnerable situations.
It's a nuanced issue.
It is. And I appreciated that even with differing viewpoints, Richard seemed to consider what I was saying.
Right.
And then his attempt to lighten the mood with those rather absurd suggestions for a non-work outing, pulling taffy, catching a greased pig.
It's a classic way to try and diffuse a heavy conversation.
Yeah.
A slightly awkward attempt to reestablish a lighter connection.
So it felt a little forced.
It did, but it also hints at a desire to perhaps get to know you outside of the immediate context of the investigation.
Right, like maybe just be friends.
Yeah, exactly. But the shadow of the investigation persists, leading you both to Garrett Park, the place where Natalie Keene was last seen,
Right.
and being there in that park.
It had a really unsettling atmosphere.
Even though Natalie's name wasn't the first thing you talked about, her absence felt palpable.
It did Richard's observation about teenagers partying there.
Wrong.
And my own memories of that park, my first kiss, my first sexual encounter, the football party incident. It all underscores how this seemingly ordinary public space holds layers of personal history.
And potentially a backdrop for darker events.
Exactly. And my reflection on the social dynamics of Wingate,
Right.
the importance placed on appearances and social standing, the need to downplay intelligence, the lack of truly close friendships.
It provides crucial context for understanding the environment in which these tragedies are occurring.
Yeah. It's like the town itself is a character in this story.
Exactly. And then Richard's very direct question, did she ever hurt you?
Oh, yeah.
In relation to your mother.
Right.
That's a pointed and significant question.
It took me aback.
Especially given your earlier remarks about your strained relationship with her.
Yeah, it forced me to confront a lot of complicated emotions and the potential for emotional, if not physical, harm within my own family.
And your response about liking the early darkness and counting days.
Right.
It reveals a coping mechanism, a way of finding a sense of control and predictability in a seemingly chaotic and emotionally charged environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the arrival of Amma and her friends so abruptly shattered the quiet of the park.
That encounter is a sudden burst of teenage energy, but with an undercurrent of something else, something potentially threatening.
Yeah.
The detailed physical descriptions of the girls, the way they carry themselves,
Right.
Amma's deliberately provocative interactions with both Richard and you, it all creates a palpable sense of escalating tension.
Yeah, like the atmosphere changed instantly.
Amma's question about wanting to be a star, her suggestive comments,
Right.
it feels like a calculated display, a way of seeking attention and maybe even exerting a kind of dominance.
Especially considering her age just 13.
Right, and the fact that her male companions appeared to be older high school dropouts.
Yeah, there was a real sense of imbalance in that dynamic. And then the way they followed us to the car.
That definitely felt menacing.
It did.
Amma's physical contact, stepping on your heel, that unsettling gesture of twirling her wet sucker in your hair. These are deliberate acts of provocation, clearly testing your reactions.
And my forceful response, grabbing her wrist.
Right.
It was a direct reaction to that aggression.
But Amma's unsettling reply.
Come on, do something. You could kill me right now, and Dick still wouldn't be able to figure it out.
It's deeply disturbing.
Yeah.
It suggests a level of awareness, even a twisted kind of challenge, a hint of something potentially very dark beneath the surface.
Yeah, the hurried departure left me with a lasting sense of unease.
As it should.
So, as we reflect on all of this, what are the key takeaways from this deep dive into your wind gap notes?
Well, I think we get a powerful sense of a small town deeply affected by tragedy, but also a town with pre-existing complexities,
Right.
intricate and sometimes strained relationships,
Yeah.
undercurrents of resentment,
Right.
and a history of violence that may not always be visible on the surface.
Right.
Amma emerges as a particularly intriguing and potentially volatile figure, embodying a number of contradictions and hinting at a capacity for disturbing behavior.
Right, in the interactions with other members of the community.
They reveal a wide spectrum of responses, grief, hostility, a kind of detached self-absorption.
Right, all contributing to this pervasive sense of unease.
Exactly.
And for you, our listener, who so generously shared these sources, you were particularly drawn to the subtle nuances of these observations. We hope that this deep dive has illuminated the intricate web of relationships and the underlying tensions within Wind Gap.
And offered a richer and perhaps more unsettling understanding of the environment that you experience.
And documented so thoughtfully in your notes.
This brings us to a final thought for all of you listening.
Okay.
Consider the recurring theme we've explored. These hidden aspects, the hidden violence, the hidden motivations, the hidden pain that seems to permeate Wind Gap.
Right.
What might be the long-term consequences of these unspoken realities on the individuals living there and on the community as a whole?
It's a question that lingers.
What other secrets might lie just beneath the seemingly ordinary surface of Wind Gap, perhaps still waiting to be brought into the light?
Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.